This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome, or should I say welcome back to Senator Tom Garrett. Thank you so much for being with us. I think when you were here before, there were several guests, and we're delighted to have a chance to talk with you. Representing a district that goes from Lynchburg over into Louisa and all those parts in between.
All the way over to the Goochland-Henrico line and the sheets there at, I guess the Wawa there at Short Pump. So
it's quite a diverse district in a way, particularly since you have part of the city of Lynchburg.
it is, and that's something we've tried to wrap our brain around. It's been a real joy getting to know the various parts of the district and the neat facts and realities. And on another level, it's been a challenge. I tell people the district's a lot like a sandwich. You've got the Region 2000 area in the south, with Amherst and to a little bit lesser extent because it's a little further out, Appomattox, and then Lynchburg. That's a really vibrant area with a lot of technology, some dynamic corporations. A large portion of our nation's private sector nuclear research happens in Lynchburg, Virginia, at B&W and Areva, and then in the north you've got the I-64 corridor, Goochland, Louisa, Fluvanna, and that's there's growth there by virtue of the presence of the interstate, and then there's a real challenge in the middle with economic development and jobs in Buckingham and Prince Edward and Cumberland County. Longwood University and Farmville's been a driver, but Buckingham has some mining and timber, and Cumberland's got the poultry industry and timber. But these are areas where if you want to represent your constituents, you need to know what the strengths and weaknesses of the district are, and we're really looking hard to see what we can do to bring jobs and to retain some of the intellectual talent. People in rural areas, and I grew up in Louisa County. We get very frustrated seeing young people with a lot of promise and potential who either choose to move away because the opportunities didn't exist, or have to move away because the opportunities aren't there. And so something we want to do in the district is create jobs and opportunity that will allow us to retain some of the young intellectual capital that we develop.
You're representing that district. You serve on the courts committee, being an attorney, education and health, general laws and technology. That's quite a significant subject areas to be covering.
We were really fortunate. I'm going into my third session, which is remarkable in and of itself. Just it seems like time flies. But very fortunate in our committee assignments as a first term senator, and these are some areas where, particularly courts and general laws, even privileges in elections, I bring some real world experience, and so that's good. It helps to feel like you can contribute right away. And then in education and health, particularly on the education side of things, I've really gotten to be passionate, really starting last session, about ensuring that we have equal educational opportunities in the K-12 arena for children across the Commonwealth. And there were some bills this year that addressed how we evaluate our schools, whether or not we should, what I like to say is interpret or translate these evaluations from the Greek into English, and that is to say, pretty much everybody understands that A equals success and C equals mediocrity or mediocre success, and F's not something we want our children's schools to be affiliated with, but that's not how we do it. So there was a bill this year that would translate partially accredited, fully accredited, not accredited into A, B, C, D, and F, and I thought that was a really good idea to allow parents to understand what's going on, to translate that evaluation system. The other thing is, I think, I don't mumble the word entitled all but so often, but I mean, our children, regardless of the color of their skin, their zip code, their school district, are entitled to a good, solid basis in public education, and Virginia's got great schools. But that doesn't mean that all schools in Virginia are great. So that's something that's, the Ed and Health Committee, the opportunity to learn, that's become a passion for me as well. We need to ensure that regardless of where you grow up, you have a good foundation for the rest of your life. So a passion that's kind of found me, I guess.
Yes. And the General Laws and Technology Committee, I mean, that committee considers all sorts of issues that end up there.
So probably, I mean, I'm not sure who's watching, but one of the most remarkable things that I tell people about as a member of the General Assembly is, and Mr. Jefferson, I think, had a good idea when he talked about a citizen legislature, because by virtue of a citizen legislature, you're going to have a breadth of experience. But one of the real challenges is we will contemplate legislation, thousands of bills in hundreds of different areas. And I like to joke, not really joking, that the only thing that I know is that I don't know everything. And so you're always on your toes in this part-time, a couple month a year job, I say sort of hyperbolically. And if you're good at this, you're going to try to wrap your brain around a lot of things. You're going to seek out subject matter experts in areas that you may have never contemplated and inform yourself. I've never voted for a bill that we hadn't read. I'm proud of that. And so that means learning a lot about a lot in a short period of time. But you're right, General Laws and Technology is one of those where you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of like that proverbial box of chocolates.
Having this conversation here in the summer, 6 months just practically before the next session, and even with this being your third year, hopefully your constituents are learning that this is the time that they need to be in touch with you.
That's a really excellent point. We've had meetings the last 2 years with the boards of supervisors. We have 9 different localities, depending upon how you count.
9, wow.
And last year I carried a number of bills for one county, and somebody from a newspaper that covers our district said, "Why are you carrying all these bills affiliated with this particular county?" I said, "Because they asked me to." And so we are in the process of reaching out, not just to the boards of supervisors, but to citizens and saying, "Hey, look, if there's something that you'd like for us to contemplate, or something that somebody else is taking the lead on that you'd like for us to join them, August, July, September, that's the time. December's not the time. It's tough enough keeping track of these sorts of things. So we welcome the contact from leaders and constituents. And you're right, this is the time of year to do it so that we can kind of get our legislative legs under us and wrap our brains around the various issues.
We're going to make sure our viewers are looking on the screen and they'll find the General Assembly web address, and there they can find, if they don't know, if they're not in your district and they're trying to figure out who's their senator and who's their delegate, they got a link there, they can do that. And then where they can get your contact information if you're the one who represents them or the person, whomever represents them in the Senate and in the House, and to take advantage of what you're saying and being in touch with those legislators
Right.
now.
Well, and you know what? I mean, the modern technology and email makes things a lot easier. Our email address is district, spelled out 22, at senate.virginia, also spelled out, .gov, district 22 at senate.virginia.gov. And again, I mean, I know that we haven't cornered the market on good ideas. We love when people come to us, and sometimes people come to us and they have an idea and we're not necessarily in intellectual agreement, and it is what it is. There'll be an election. But sometimes people come to us with ideas, and it's one of those, wow, I wish that we'd have thought of that first moments. But it's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not concerned with who gets the credit. So
Now, thinking ahead of the next session, are there issues that, not necessarily ones that you're going to be working on, but do you see some issues that will be before the session that might be some of the big ones?
well, I think unfortunately that even though there was a comprehensive transportation plan passed, there's some real possibilities that we come back and relook that. First, there was the Federal Marketplace Fairness Act, the internet sales tax, that some of our transportation revenue was contingent upon. For the record, I voted against the bill because what I did is I sat back and I looked at my district and what we would gain and what we would lose. You know, Buckingham County has but one senator, and I could go through a litany of other localities, and I need to represent my constituents. But anyway, some of the things at the federal level haven't played out the way I think was anticipated, so that may bring us back. Additionally, there's litigation as it relates to revenue generating mechanisms specifically for Northern Virginia and Hampton roads. So depending upon what happens with those, we may be addressing transportation again. It's a budget year next year, so there'll be a lot of time spent in the long session on trying to make sure that we get that worked out properly. I will continue to bang the drum that we need to be good stewards of the revenue we have before we look to generate additional revenues, and champion the concept that there are certain core essential responsibilities that are appropriate to state government, and when we start to stray outside those, it's either a luxury or a mistake. And when times are tight, and unfortunately I'm afraid they'll continue to be, you don't have a lot of room for luxury. So we need to be frugal in addressing that budget. You know, in the micro, I generally don't get out on legislative issues too far out, but there's one that I anticipate carrying next year, and that would deal with the zero tolerance policies in our schools. There was a young boy, I want to say 8 years old, in Suffolk, who was recently suspended for holding his pencil as if it were a gun and making the pow-pow noises that were all too common, I suppose, when I was 8. And I understand the concept behind zero tolerance, having had a background as a prosecutor. But I'd like to see localities that implement zero tolerance policies also have some sort of review and appeal mechanism. The concept would be that if you're going to suspend a kid for chewing his Pop-Tart into the shape of something vaguely resembling either a gun or the state of Idaho, that there be some sort of grievance process, that the zero tolerance have a review. I'd also like to see at least one member of the review panel be an elected official, whether it's a town or city council member, a board of supervisors member, or school board member where they're elected. Because then, you know, where there's a decision that's outlandish and I think inconsistent with common sense, the voters will have recourse. But I think, you know, certainly there's a fine line to be walked between creating an environment conducive to learning and safe for young people and suspending kids for pointing their finger and saying pow pow when they're 8 years old. And so that's something that we're going to try to look at this year specifically, as opposed to the macro view.
Well, Senator Garrett, we thank you so much for being on This Week in Richmond and for the information you've provided our viewers. And we look forward to having a conversation with you as the next session convenes.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
Thank you. As we welcome our viewers back to This Week in Richmond, we welcome Delegate Delores McQuinn, Senator Henry Marsh.
How are you?
City of Richmond's well represented today.
Okay.
And appreciate you all being on This Week in Richmond to talk with both the people here in the Richmond area and around the state on issues that you'd like to mention to them. So I know that Senator Marsh has one that he's going to start with, and then we'll see what you'd like to, because we've talked about an issue that concerns you, and you're interested in bringing forth some legislation next year.
Yeah, you mentioned Richmond. Actually, Richmond is one of my smaller jurisdictions. I have more people in Chesterfield than anywhere else.
That's
A lot of people in Petersburg, all of Hopewell, and only a portion of Richmond. So I'm a Central Virginia senator.
Right, yes.
And the issue you're talking about involves a shooting that occurred during the 4th of July celebration. In many sections of the state, people use fireworks and shooting up in the air. And because of an incident that occurred in Brandomere, a young boy, 7 years old, was killed from a bullet that came down out of the air. And I went to his funeral, and it was a sad funeral, a church full of people, the open casket, a young boy looked like a little angel. And he was walking with his father, and a bullet came down and dropped him, and he died. And it's a very sad situation, but it happens more frequently than people realize. So I'm proposing a bill I'm going to call Brendan's Law. Brendan's Law, because the name of the young boy was Brendan, to to increase the penalties for shooting up in the air. If you stay on your property now, there's not much penalty for shooting on your property, but even the penalty for shooting in willfully to endanger someone is very slight. So my bill would increase the penalties and would make it a felony to shoot up in the air when people are likely to be injured or killed. And this is something that affects people statewide, not just in Chesterfield. But I was in Richmond on the 4th, and it sounded like machine guns. I thought it was fireworks, and I was told by someone who lived in the area that they were shooting up in the air. So this is a serious problem. We're sort of preoccupied with our guns in Virginia, and hopefully I'm seeking the Republican support, so hopefully it'll be a bipartisan effort to discourage people from celebrating that way. There are better ways to celebrate. So I'll have more to say about this later.
Well, not only that, I think, Senator, you're absolutely right but you have the whole issues of guns that is dominating in our society, and it seemed to be certainly a bigger issue than any of us want to admit. And I think there are advocates across, statewide who are looking at this particular issue and trying to put greater control, and certainly the senator has been doing that for years, trying to find a better way to control guns. And now you have random shooting that occurs so often. And as a result of certainly what happened on the 4th, then a young man, a 7-year-old, is dead because of it. And so it should be a clear message that's sent to all of us how essential it is to look at the gun laws, to do better things in terms of being careful and not careless. We seem to be careless with guns. And we've got to get to the point that we put better control on how people handle guns, the hands that are the person that have guns in their hands. A lot of people with mental illness and other issues that they're dealing with and have no business having a gun. And so certainly something like that is to be strongly supported by quite a few of us, and hopefully everyone can support something like that, just to protect one another, protect citizens.
So this a busy year leading up to the next session with an election in between. And as you were saying before we started recording the program, that it's not a time that many people get all that involved, but it's a time when all members of the House of Delegates are up for election, as well as the statewide offices up for election. So,
well, I think our biggest opponent is apathy. The percentage of the vote in non-presidential years is very low, and that's what happened to us last time after we were celebrating the election of the president, Barack Obama. The very next election, the percentage dropped to about more than half of the Obama supporters went back to the polls. So as a result, we got some people in there now who are making things interesting. So we really have to deal with apathy. And it's hard to overcome it in a non-presidential year because most people think that's the only election that's important. But with the emphasis on state laws now and the way the Supreme Court is giving more power to the states, I think that we need to focus more on state and local elections because that's where the decisions are going to be made instead of in the federal level. We can't get much done at the federal level with the House of Delegates stalemating everything. So we almost have the same situation here in the state of Virginia. We have a House of Delegates that president comes and accepts it,
Please.
that makes slows things down quite a bit.
Well, you both have been involved in local government too. You talked about the local government, so the importance of people putting on local government issues too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the senator says, in terms of apathy, he's absolutely right. But I'm hoping that in light of some of the things that are happening, across the nation, we've got certainly a big issue, and locally, you're affected by this national issue that is happening as a result of a young man being killed, and this stand your ground law that's in Florida, and so I think the sensitivity of that, it's felt right here in Richmond as well, and it has a lot to do with racial profiling and other issues, and so I'm hoping that as a result of some of the things that are going on nationally, that people here, voters, would see the importance of certainly going to the polls and vote. A lot of times they don't get in gear. These elections don't get in really going until after Labor Day. But because of what is happening again nationally, I think people are becoming a lot more sensitive to the fact that there are some things that they can do to help transform communities, to change laws, to impact, how laws are implemented. And that seemed to be on a lot of individuals' minds at this point. We had right here in Richmond had the protest on Saturday, and that's the second one that is happening here in Richmond. And so many of the speakers out there talked about the fact that one of the greatest, there's an obligation almost for us as voters and for an individual to go to the poll, to be vigilant about what's going on around them, about laws that are put in place and how they're impacted by it. And so I think that, as a result of that, we will see people who are a little bit more sensitive to what's going on, and I think a little bit more engaged in terms of going to the polls and making sure that they vote.
I hope that's not wishful thinking.
Yeah,
because I noticed, David, over the years, we seem to be drifting into soundbite politics mentality. The politicians save the money till the end when people begin to focus on the election, which means that people listen at the sound bites and decide who to vote for based on who has the best advertising campaign. I mean, it would be better if we focused on the head debates, talked about the elections more than the last few weeks, but that's what happens. And most people don't really pay much attention to the election, even in the last few weeks. So you get people electing based on some slick ad on TV rather than the discussion of the issues. Education, for example, is an extremely important issue, and that's decided at a local level in large part. And most people are concerned about education, especially K-12 education, but they don't vote. In some city council races, they didn't even have candidates. In school board races, the city council and board of supervisors, they appropriate money for schools, K-12 education, but in one school board election in the district I represent, didn't even have a candidate. But that's important to the quality of life in the area.
And I think that it's also important for people to understand the fact that if you're gonna protect core values, if you're gonna look at things like education, public safety, public health, the only way that you can impact that or what's going to happen to you is to get to the polls and vote. And so I think it's also incumbent upon all of us to make sure that everywhere you're going, you're talking about it. You're talking about the election in November. You're talking about these core issues that would affect the average person, the grassroots. When people clearly understand that through education, and I think again, it's some of the commitment should be on the part, particularly of elected officials, to make sure every opportunity that they get, that they're having these kind of discussions with their constituents, wherever they are. And I know certainly that's something that I do. Wherever I go and there's a group, I'm talking about the importance of getting to the polls because you're going to be affected. And again, as you can see, and sometimes people don't connect the dots, but as they can see, when laws are put in place, like this Stand Your Ground law in Florida, what can, these these consequences as a result of those things. And that is why people need to understand, how imperative it is for us to get to the poll and to vote.
Well, thank you both very much for being on This Week in Richmond. Our time is up for
Wow.
this time, but we look forward to having another conversation with each of you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Haley Buick GMC, the place for a new Verano or Terrain Denali, in Richmond and online at haleybuickgmc.com. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosting an array of events from Civil War reenactments to diesel truck pulls. More information online at virginiarodeo.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. So what do you do? Information about getting involved in advanced technology careers, making everything from clean energy to life-saving medicine, is available at dreamitdoitvirginia.com. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.